This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Good evening, welcome to a special program. We are revisiting the theme of air safety in the country in the wake of shocking new details of how, after the Mangalore Air India Express crash, another Air India Express Boeing jetliner came within seconds of a disaster. All this on a day when the aviation safety regulator, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, issued two key guidelines which seemed to refer to shocking lapses in both incidents. Just days after the Mangalore air crash of an Air India Express Boeing 737-800 jetliner comes news of another frightening incident. You may have read about the close call on board Air India Express's flight IX212, Dubai-Pune on the 26th of May. But what we'll now bring you are never-before-told details of just what happened in the cockpit. What you'll also see is a recreation of the events on board the jet, which crash-dived several thousand feet before the pilot was able to save the day. What you see here is a simulation on Microsoft Flight Simulator X, one of the most advanced commercially available simulators. And what you see is a realistic simulation of an Air India Express Boeing 737-800. The aircraft was flying between Dubai and Pune. It was southeast of Oman over the Arabian Sea. The plane was at level flight at an altitude of 37,000 feet. What you see here is the altitude of the jet and the airspeed, and this artificial horizon instrument indicates that the jet was at level flight. The commander then left the cockpit to go to the bathroom. He soon sensed that the jet was suddenly banking and tried to open the bulletproof door of the cockpit by pushing a keypad on the other side of this cockpit door that you see. Now, that's normally a single button push which activates a chime inside the cockpit, but there was no response from the co-pilot, who should have pressed a button on the center pedestal in the cockpit to release the door. Sensing impending disaster, the pilot punched the emergency code on the keypad to access the cockpit. He had memorized this as required by the manufacturer. The door, as per its programming, unlocked, but only 35 seconds later. The pilot then entered the cockpit. He saw the jet in a steep 23-degree nose-down pitch. The aircraft was at an airspeed of Mach 0.86. That's near supersonic flight and is over 1,000 kilometers per hour and accelerating downwards. An overspeed warning sounded. That's a clatter on the control stick indicating that the jet was on the verge of structural failure. Unable to sit down on his seat, the pilot gradually pulled back on the controls, since jerky movements could have shattered the airframe. In sum, in approximately 30 seconds, the Air India jetliner went from 37,000 feet to 30,200 feet at a descent rate of 21,000 feet per second with a nose-down pitch of 23 degrees. In a few minutes, there would have been a disaster. A couple of key points over here. The rate of descent of that aircraft was 21,000 feet per minute, not 21,000 feet per second. Nonetheless, extremely alarming for any civilian aircraft, any aircraft for that matter, to be descending at that rate. It should also be pointed out, in fact reiterated, that the pilot of the aircraft, when he chose to leave the cockpit to go to the washroom, was in a situation when the aircraft was completely in control. It was apparently on autopilot and it was straight and level flight. And from all accounts and all sources, the pilot of this aircraft did a sterling job in finally being able to get back into that cockpit. Despite the door not opening, he had to activate that emergency code, get into the cockpit. He was not even able to sit down properly in his seat. Somehow or the other, realizing the gravity of the situation, he managed to take control of the aircraft and very gently recover the flight so that the aircraft didn't break up in midair, because it was in an overspeed scenario. What is an overspeed scenario? All civilian aircraft, all aircraft for that matter, are designed to operate within certain speed parameters.
Tuba.com,